Hey everybody, my name's Melissa. Some of you may know me as Dad Hands. Today I just wanted to take a chance to try out a couple of less common tooling leathers against a couple of more common tooling leathers that a lot of us use every day in and around the shop. So without further ado, let's give it a shot. So I've gone ahead and I've cased all four of my leathers. If you want a little more information on how to do that, it's the most important step, in my opinion, to successful clean tooling. There is a video I will link below that I made previously. So these are the four leathers we have. We have Valdebrana, which is not a very common tooling leather that I've ever personally heard of or used, so I'm kind of excited about the opportunity to give it a try. The second one is Herman Oak. It's my number one every single day. Pretty much everything I've ever made is on Herman Oak. Then we go to Wicket and Craig, my very close second favorite. And last but not least, very common leather that a lot of people use for wallets and things. It's Botero, but it is in the natural form. It's unglazed, natural leather. It's not pre-dyed or oiled or anything like that. So there's a few different things I'm going to try out on each one. I'm looking for the ease of the swivel cuts, beveling, the crispness of stamps. I've got a couple little fun image stamps that Eric had kicking around. Let me borrow. And just overall how crisp the final image is once it's done. So I've actually gone ahead before we do all the tests and I've tooled the same image into each of our four leathers just to kind of gauge the overall tooling experience, just because one is good at, say, swivel knife cuts or taking, like a picture stamp crisply. It might not necessarily be the best in other categories. So at the end we'll go over sort of how I felt working with each one. Alright, so in the interest of keeping this fair, we're going to treat this like a little bit of a science project. Between each one, I'm going to make sure I'm stropping my swivel knife blade. And we're going to do the same pass on each piece. So we're going to do a straight cut, a wiggly cut, we're going to do some beveling, a little background stamping, and an image stamp, just to see. Tooling's not always necessarily creating pictures and whatnot. There's also things like basket weave and stuff like that. So the information behind the backgrounding and the way it takes an image stamp would be very... This is the Valdebrana. This is our first one. There is a little bit of drag to it. It does have a really firm grain and a little bit of resistance. The next piece we'll be trying is the Herman Oak. I have tried a few tooling leathers in the past, and a little more cost effective, a little more readily available, and I always end up going back to the Herman Oak. It's been my sort of tried and true so far. So we'll go with a nice straight cut, and we'll also do a swivel cut. So there isn't a ton of grab, it's nice and smooth, the grain is sort of like a nice medium temper, and it's beautiful. The third one is the Wicket and Craig. Very close second favorite of mine. I've done some runs of bags. It usually comes in like a nice bag weight. There is a couple of different versions or qualities available, so I've tooled on both. There is like an A grade, which is by far the nicest, which is what this is. And they also have kind of a B grade, which is like a little bit looser of a grain. I really like, obviously, the A grade is nice and smooth. I find their B grade is a little bit on the spongy side, so you're going to want to look for, anything available in panels or like A grade. So the fourth and final leather is the Botero. Not traditionally a tooling leather, but a very beautiful leather for many other things. It's actually quite nice and smooth, a little bit of a tight grain, a little more pressure needed. I did choose a couple of leathers just completely out of curiosity to sort of see how an unglazed natural veg tan of a different variety would work versus ones that I've personally used that are specifically formulated for tooling. So not to like trash talk Botero or Valdebrana, just depending on how the tooling tests and whatnot go out. It was more just the curiosity of seeing if I am able to actually tool on something that wasn't quite meant for it. Okay, so these are the three bevelers that I'm going to show. This is actually a lifter. I just want to show the kind of depth we can get with each one. Just a heavy checked beveler, which I use quite a lot in my work. and a smooth beveler, which is sort of a more traditional thing to use. Okay, we'll grab the Val de Brana first. So I'm just going to start with the heavy checkered beveler. We're just going to go down the straight line a little bit. This is what you would use to kind of make your image sort of pop out. And generally I go to the outside of the line. There's a little bit of resistance. It is taking a little bit to really get it to dig in there. But overall, actually quite a nice, crisp texture in there. So quite happy with that. So that's the heavy checkered beveler. So I'm going to give it a shot with the smooth beveler as well. We'll hit this curved line a little bit. So it is a little bit skippy. Because it is a heavier weight leather too, this is about a 5 to 6 ounce, I do like to kind of go back and forth over my lines when I use a smooth beveler, just to get rid of any sort of chatter or tooling marks in there. You always want to be overlapping as you went, or as you go, sorry. And this takes a lot of practice to get a nice smooth bevel. This doesn't happen overnight, and take your time with it. And there you are. So not bad. I would like to see this maybe a little bit smoother. I mean, some of that can be operator as well, but because it is such a tight grain leather, it is pretty smooth. Just out of curiosity, just the final, I'm going to use a little bit of a lifter. I'm going to get down under there and see how it pushes out the leather. So it is a little bit stiffer, not necessarily the smoothest. So there was a little bit of lift, but not quite as much as I would like to see. Hermit oak time. We're going to start with the heavy checkered beveler, this little guy right here. This is probably the #1 tooling stamp that I use. So there's some good depth of color as well too. Leather does go a little bit darker in the recesses as you hammer it down. So I'm a big fan of the way Hermit oak changes color. There's oftentimes I won't even use antiquing or anything like that just because it does it on its own. I'll just give it an oil and a little bit of a condition. Yep. So this is the smooth beveler. Nice and smooth. I prefer to work, I usually go over lines a couple times. I'll kind of get them settled in there and then hammer down accordingly. It's kind of like how you cut leather. You know, you don't want to necessarily cut all the way through all at once. But as you can see, again, nice rich color, fairly smooth line. And then we'll do just a little lifting in this pocket here. So as you can see right away, you're getting that nice big ridge, which is traditionally seen in a lot of floral carvings. Just helps your piece to really pop out there. Third is the Wicket and Craig. Again, another leather that I've tooled quite a bit on. It tends to perform quite nicely. So much like the Hermit oak, we get a nice rich color in the deepest part of the impression. Nice smooth lines, really easy to sort of carry over. We'll give it a little shot with the smooth beveler as well. So little to no slipping, nice and smooth. Again, that nice rich color in the impression. And so this is the lifter on the Wicket and Craig. Little more resistant than the Herman Oak. We're not quite getting that ridge, but with a little work, I'm confident. There it is. So it took a little bit more work than the Herman Oak, but you do get a little bit of that nice sort of ridge and pocket with Wicket and Craig. So our fourth and final is the Botero.
World famous.
World famous. It's a beautiful leather. I love it. It makes gorgeous wallets. I do know people that tool on Botero or
but
have.
Is it really meant for tooling?
But is it meant for tooling? So first impression, not bad. Nice and smooth, but not as crisp. Like, I kind of judge it on how crisp the checkering. Checkering is a little more muted. As you can see, like a comparison with the Herman Oak, you can see the actual checkering a lot better. This is just, like I said, a little more muted, but not terrible. I quite like it. I think it's pretty good. So it's pretty smooth. It is a bit tighter of a grain than the tooling leather, so it is taking a little more focus and pressure to keep it from skipping off the line. But overall, not bad. So our final test is with the lifter. And actually, not bad. Getting a nice clean ridge. Good grab with the tool. Very happy with that, actually.
Well, focus. Here we go.
So you got your nice little ridge, nice little smooth ditch there. Pretty good. So we're just gonna cruise down the line. This is just a backgrounder stamp that I've actually personally never used before, but I'm really excited to. It's got this cool little sort of geometric thing going on. Okay, so we're gonna start out with the Valdebrana. So that's actually quite a nice crisp impression there. So that's the Herman Oak, nice and crisp as well. Oh, I think that's the nicest one so far. Super crisp, real nice stamp. And last but definitely not least, the Botero. So it takes a little more force. It's not going as deep as the others, but still pretty nicely blended overall. I don't really have anything bad to say about any of these leathers, to be honest. So we have this little stamp from the 70s that Eric had kicking around. It's like the same size and shape as my Maker's Mark that I use. So I just wanted to see, sometimes leathers, you know, it'll take a little bit of extra hitting or like sort of shifting it around to get that full clear picture. So we'll just see what each one of these. So that's the Valdebrana. Okay, not too terrible. I would probably go back and give it a little tilt just to get the back end there, but there we go. This is the Herman Oak. Quite a lot deeper, a little bit more evenly dispersed. Great stamp. There, we'll move to the Wicket and Craig. Got myself right in the hand there. Again, a lot deeper, really even, nicely dispersed. great, great stamping on the Wicket and Craig. And last but not least, the Botero. So a little shallow. I'm trying to make sure these are all getting struck the same amount. It does take a lot more persistence to get the larger sort of image stamp because it does have a larger surface area than say one of the Bevelers or the smaller backgrounder stamps. It generally does take a little bit more work and pressure to get something that large into your leather. So with the Valdebrana, first impressions, no pun intended, I did find it quite stiff to work with. I did have a little bit of slipping around some of the curves with the knife. And it, the color change, it's okay. It's good. Again, more of an unconventional leather, not something that people generally tool every day. It was fun to try though. The Herman Oak, of course, the old steady, tried and true, nice and quick, easy to do, little to no slipping with the knife work, nice deep impressions without a lot of pressure or hitting, and of course that nice color change in the recesses. From there we have the Wicket and Craig, which actually with this image was my favorite of the four. Just came out nice and clean, nice and deep impressions without a lot of effort, just overall really great color as well too. And last but not least is the Botero, which unfortunately I got a little bit dirty as I was doing it. Much like the Valdebrana though, a little bit harder to get like a nice deep impression, but still tooled pretty clean in the end. So in conclusion, I don't really have anything bad to say about any of the leathers. I will say though, with the Botero and the Valdebrana, they were a little bit harder to work with, a little more unconventional. It's kind of a fun exercise if you have a bag, say, that's made purely out of Botero and you want to keep it that way. You could essentially tool your sort of detail pieces out of that. Not really something I would go reaching for on the everyday, but still very cool to work with. I find like as I grow and progress as an artist, I do like to try different materials. If you look back on my channel a little bit, I have actually tooled J&FJ Bakers, which again, not necessarily something that people tool every day. There is something to remember is there are so many tanneries all over the world, different kinds of leather, different tooling leather available. It's always fun to just kind of, give it a shot, try something different, something you might not have tried before. But of course, my vote for A, affordability, and B, ease of use, and sort of the cleanest impressions, I would go with the Herman Oak or the Wicket and Craig myself, personally. Yeah, so that's going to about wrap it up. I just wanted to take a moment to thank Buckle Guy. They didn't sponsor this video, but they did furnish me the Valdebrana, the Wicket and Craig, and also the Botero, leathers that aren't always available to me, especially being in Canada. So it was nice of them to throw me a couple panels to sort of be able to try them out and test out some new leathers and share with all you guys. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.